Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show on this Friday. Last day of the month, last day of June 2023. Never see a June again in 2023. It's the last day of the month. United Kingdom wants NATO to speed up Ukraine's membership process as alliance prepares to meet. So they're really they're really thinking about moving Ukraine as part of NATO. This is what triggered the war to begin with. Russia didn't want Ukraine to be part of NATO. And so this war has been dragging on and on. It's a war of attrition. Both sides are having to try to keep up with ammunition production in the West and in Russia too. Factories will be running a lot of work for a lot of people to try to keep up with the ammunition that they're blowing up on this piece of ground. And it's the same way as World War II. You know, they would march up one hill, bloody one side of the hill, massive casualties, and then once they get up to the top of the hill, then they'd be pushed back down to the bottom, and they'd have to take the hill again, and all this kind of stuff. And then finally they'd take the hill and plant their flag and everything, and then later, after the war's over, they give it back to the country they took it from. But the hill was soaked in blood multiple times. This is war. This is what they do. This is just stupidity. But there you go. And this war is a very dangerous war because it could translate into something bigger. It could turn into a nuclear war or World War III. What did I have this page on here for? It says, no end in sight to wildfire smoke suffocating American cities. Yeah, I heard this morning that Canada, I think normally they burn something like, I think it was so many hectares that they normally burns in the year. I think it was like a couple million or something. It's like 10 times more than normal and 20 times more than normal is burning up here in Canada. And this is early in the season. What about all that land? It turns it like chars it. Of course, we seen the same thing happen in Australia there a year ago or something. I remember Australia was burning. Now it's Canada that's burning. They got huge areas of tundra forest. I think Canada's got a lot more forests than just about any country except for Siberia. Once you get up north of 50. Anyway, let's take a look at this story. This is the hunger risk hotspots in the world. And you see a lot of them are in Africa. And you know, all the time when I was a young man growing up, it was always Africa that was suffering through food shortages. But it still is. And if you look at this globe of the world, you can see that most of the places are in Africa, these hunger risk hotspots. The highest percentage of them is in Africa. There's a little bit in South America and a little bit in Central America, you know. And there's a couple, it looks like there's a couple down in around, in near India, you know, and stuff, you know. But for the most part, most of them are in Africa. But you know what's curious about all this is? You'd never think that there's a hunger risk for places like the United States of America, or for Canada, or for the United Kingdom. I don't think there's any risk there. Oh, they're always going to be fed. But, hold on a minute. Just wait a minute here. Yeah, they're always going to be fed as long as the supply chains are in action. The just-in-time delivery is in action. As long as that's there, those countries are always going to be fed. But what happens if there's a breakdown in, say, the electrical grid or in the internet for an extended period, and that breakdown, the spin-off effect, is that the just-in-time delivery and the supply chains break down as well. You see, COVID started to break down our supply chains. Do you guys remember all the shortages? No baby formula! No baby formula today. Remember that? Remember, no toilet paper! No toilet paper today. Remember that? That was what COVID was starting to do. It didn't progress deeply into cutting off our supply chains, but it was working around the edges of our supply chains and cutting them down. COVID was. Imagine if something else were to come along and completely break down our supply chains so that they do not function. Then hunger risks for the people who live in places like America and Canada and Great Britain and places like that would suddenly be big time. We'd be totally cut off because our supply chain supplies us with everything. And we would have nothing. Nothing except whatever you've got in your pantry. And so, what about these other people who live in places like Africa? They're not as reliant upon the supply chain as we are for everything. We're totally 100% reliant upon the supply chain. We don't go out, very few of us. Oh yeah, there is a few people out there who have a garden and produce food themselves. But it's a very small minority of the population. The vast majority of the population is 100% reliant upon the grocery store. They never produce anything for themselves. But what about these countries like Africa? Do those people produce food for themselves to a certain degree, a certain percentage of their food? Are they more capable of producing food for themselves? Yeah, they live in places like enormous part. You notice that some of the darkest areas here in Africa, of the ones who are hunger risk hotspots, are borderlining on the Sahara Desert. It's a desert, for crying out loud. It doesn't produce food very good. That's part of the problem. Biggest desert on Earth. It consumes almost half of Africa, for crying out loud. It's such a big desert. And it wants to expand. Anyway, let's move on. We got other stories here. France. It says here in this article, France has fallen. But it hasn't fallen, but it's in the process of having tremendous problems right now. Dramatic footage shows social unrest spreading in a third night of it. 600 people were arrested. Majority of them between the ages of 14 and 18 years old. And here shows the riot maps. Look around Paris. Look at all the riot maps. There's as many riots as there are houses, practically. All the dots, those are riots. And I mean, these are pension riots and fuel riots. And if you take a look here, you'll see that they are burning. Look at this. A large shopping center in the suburbs of Paris is completely destroyed by fire. And that camera's taking the picture from a long ways off, probably a mile away. And it's just lighting up the whole night sky. They're burning the whole shopping center down. That's going to cost something. That's like, picture the mall, probably. I don't know where you are, where you live in America, but picture your mall, your shopping mall, and then burning the whole thing down. That's going to cost something. But that's not all. I mean, it's all over the country it's happening. Look, you can see the fires everywhere. It's just, it says huge fires raging at the RATP bus depot. Anyway, here's the thing, guys. If they are successful in getting something out of this, getting something accomplished that they want, the people who are doing the rioting, other countries are going to sit back and say, hey, you know what? If you push hard enough, you get what you want. And this is the same philosophy that the people in power got in power with. It's basically, it kind of works like whoever's the most vicious ends up being the leader of the country. You know, I mean, it's like who's ever the strongest, got the biggest muscles, and the most vicious And this is how our culture worked all the way through history. Now we vote, but it's whoever is the crookedest is the winner. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of kidding around a little bit, but in actuality, it's more or less truth behind it all. Because our civilization hasn't reached a level of I believe that there's other civilizations out there in space someplace, out there, way out there, who have reached a certain degree of morality, but us, we're lagging behind. And we got nuclear weapons, so that represents a huge problem. Anyway, how did I get talking about that? Let's move on. Supreme Court strikes down student loan relief. Here's who's most affected. Okay, here's the thing. This is going to start to take an awful lot of discretionary spending away from a certain group of people within the United States. Probably $300 a month that they're not going to have any longer to be able to go to the mall. And so that's going to translate into the economy further. And it's not like things are not bad enough already, and going downhill fast. I'll tell you guys what. The inflation that we had and what we got right now, or the inflation that's out there right now, could actually turn out to be transitory. And the reason why is there's different types of inflation. There's inflation that's caused by demand. I mean, people just going into a store and they want to buy everything that's on the shelves. Of course the price is going to go up. But that's not the type of inflation we have. It's not an inflation that's being driven by demand for items. The inflation that we have is a leftover remnant. It's like if a person took a football, a young guy, he's got a strong arm on him, and he throws a football up into the air as hard as he can. It goes up, it makes an arching pattern, and it reaches the highest point, the pinnacle of how high it's going to go, and then what does it do? Well, this is what happened when the Fed injected all that money after COVID. It was like tossing the football up, and when it's first leaving the arm, it's going up really fast, higher and higher and higher, like a bullet. And that's what everything was going up like a bullet until the money runs out. And that's like the velocity it's pushing the football up runs out. It hits the highest part, the little arch it makes in the air where it slows to a stop. It has a stopping point where the football stops up there in the air. It's not moving, it's not falling, it's not going up any longer. What's it getting ready to do next? Because that's where we're at right now. All of our markets and everything is in that top of that arch. All that money that they spent during COVID has pushed us up to these great heights. And what comes next? A fall. And that's the deflationary spike event, is when it starts to fall, because they cannot let this football hit the ground. The reason why is this football has got a 30 megaton nuclear weapon inside it, and if it touches the ground, it's going to explode and kill everybody in the world. Okay? It's going to fall now. And the Fed's got to catch it and stop it from hitting the ground, toss it back up in the air again. That's what they got to do. That's their job. But if they fumble, well, this thing could just totally wreck the financial system to where money doesn't work anymore if they fumble. And that would be the end of the world for us as we know it. Believe it or not, if money were to actually cease to function and they couldn't straighten it out and everybody didn't know who owns what, or nobody knows who everybody goes bankrupt, in other words, and the money just vaporizes in the system, which would be what? And all the treasury bonds go default on and everything, it would cause such chaos in the entire world. Money would cease to function. And you have no idea, because everything runs on money. It means the system would stop. It's got the power of nuclear weapons. Worse. Because there are parts of civilization that might escape a thermonuclear war. But every place uses money. And if money ceases to function, this system will go down in flames. And it would probably take 90% of the world's population down with it. Unless you got some place where you can grow your own food. Some place where you got 2 growing seasons in a year. And some place where your neighbor's not going to come take what you got. I mean, unless you're in that kind of a circumstance, you would be in a big mess if the money quit working. People do not realize how bad that would be. Let's get in there and take a look at the markets, because I've been talking a long time. Silver price is up 20 cents, $22.73 today. Taking a look at gold. Gold is up. Gold's up $11.70. Gold's really moving up quite nicely at $1,919. Now, cryptos, they ain't doing so good today, guys. We're in the middle of some sort of a drop right now, a sudden drop. Bitcoin's at 30,027. Ethereum's at 1851, but things are not looking good right now. Looking like they're dropping fast on certain coins. XRP 46.4 cents. It looks like some of them are going straight down, especially the altcoins. Just looks like it just started a few minutes ago. Dow Jones Industrial Average today, 34,342. It's up 219 points. This is your blow off top. If I'm correct, we will not pass this high point in the market of 36,000 and change. We will not pass that, because this is a dead cat bounce. It might make it up a little bit higher, but I'm seeing this as a dead cat. That's what I'm seeing it as, a dead cat bounce. And I'm expecting this big downward move in the markets. And then I'm expecting the Fed to step in probably around, I don't know, probably around 28,000. I've been expecting this for a while. It gets down around 26,000, and everything's starting to fold down, fold in. Then they'll fold in with it all, and they'll say, oh, we got to go back and do some quantitative easing again. Oh, we got to lower interest rates. We got to bring that yield curve down. Oh, they might even go negative this time. They might go down negative interest rates this time. Last time they went down to 0. This time they might go negative, have to go negative. And they'll pump a whole bunch of money into the different corporations and stuff. Whoever it is that goes bankrupt. And it's going to be big. It's going to be bailouts like you never seen before. And they might have to actually resort to things, because there's going to be a lot of people starving and stuff. They're going to have to resort to UBI and a lot more. They'll do a lot more. Stimmy checks, whatever they have to do. And they'll try to get things back on its feet again. But it'll have momentum by that point. The downward spiral. It's like the football, you know. The football goes up and it's got momentum going up. But when it falls, it gets momentum too. And so this whole thing, when it falls, it's going to have momentum in a downward motion. And it's going to take that much more energy again to get it to stop. And it takes a while. There's always a delay. And that's why they got away with this tightening stuff, because we're working through the delay of the effects of what the tightening's going to have. Those effects are going to be felt in the future. The effects of their tightening schedule coming right up. Anyway, taking a look at crude oil today is at $70.88. It's up $1.02. So it's cracked $70. Let's see if it goes any further. Bonds and rates today, we're looking at falling yields. But they're not falling as far as they rose yesterday. Yes, looking at a 10-year at 3.81. It's fell 4.1 basis points. And a 30-year at 3.88. And it's fell 5.2 basis points. And taking a look at the dollar index today, we're looking at a falling dollar at 102.92. Thank you guys for listening to my show. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.